You know, baseball calls it the hot stove league. In Idaho politics, the offseason might as well be called the lukewarm legal league. That's the time when what went on during the legislative session is seeing some time with a legal or an investigative team. Well, this week, the Legislative Services Office released the findings of an audit into the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. The report confirms what the Joint Finance Appropriations Committee suspected back in February, that Health and Welfare was misusing American Rescue Plan Act dollars, ARPA money. Health and Welfare denies any wrongdoing, but JFAC's suspicion is really how this whole process started, because on the side, Idaho Attorney General Labrador has also been looking into Health and Welfare's use of those funds. But he's run into a legal battle over it. Andrew Bartline spoke with Mr. Labrador today about the audit's findings and what he can and can't do about it.
A 6-month process condensed down to 55 pages, referring the next steps forward.
This is not over.
Addressing Idaho Attorney General Labrador.
They have a belief that civil liabilities are in place, and also that potentially criminal activity happened during this time.
Under JFAC's direction, the Legislative Services Office audited community partner grants under Health and Welfare because those dollars have specific strings attached.
The Department of Health and Welfare refuses to follow those laws, and they make up their own rules.
Through the appropriation bill, it was like ages 5 to 13 for learning loss and after-school programs. What did they do with the money then?
Well, they gave it to programs, number one, that did not only have kids 5 to 13. They didn't only spend it on children 5 to 13. And they also did not follow the guidelines on what the money could be spent on.
Health and Welfare argues they were following federal guidelines and denies any wrongdoing, including overspending by nearly $500,000.
The department is a little bit funny, in my opinion, is that, well, the number was a floor. It wasn't a ceiling.
Are you familiar with any appropriation bills historically being interpreted as this is the floor you can spend?
No, and in fact, that's what the Legislative Services said, that it has never been interpreted that way.
These are findings that Labrador tried to uncover himself, starting back in March, under the same direction of legislators.
Correct.
What did you find?
Well, so I haven't found anything yet because I've been fighting with the Department of Health and Welfare.
Or rather, with his own staff. Before Labrador took office, state attorneys wrote an opinion. It legally protects the department's actions.
And what I call a CYA letter, which is to cover yourself. You can determine what that A is for, but cover yourself. And this happens a lot when businesses do things that are inappropriate. They try to get a legal opinion saying that nothing that they did in the past was wrong.
And that's from Wasden's.
Correct.
Yeah, that wasn't your people.
That wasn't my people, and then they reissued the opinion when I became the Attorney General without telling me that they were going to reissue that opinion.
What do you mean they? Who is they?
The attorneys in Health and Welfare.
Attorneys that work for Labrador?
Yes.
And signed a Wasden-era opinion. But on a Labrador letterhead, the court is holding his office accountable to this opinion, meaning his office cannot investigate Health and Welfare further.
We're either going to appeal it or we're going to appoint somebody to do the investigation.
An investigation that opponents say is politically motivated. The comment comes from other political characters known within the State House walls.
A press release just came out earlier today by former Representative Greg Cheney.
Yes.
I understand he represents the other side of this.
He does.
He has used language such as witch hunt. This is the IFF and Raul Labrador playing politics right now, not exactly interested in seeking the truth, seeking what they want.
I don't pay too much attention to what Greg Cheney says, so.
What kind of response do you have, though, that the opposition in this is saying this is just a political move going after an organization that you don't like?
So interestingly, this is an independent audit. So that tells you that what Greg Cheney is saying is false. I think it's actually a shameful day for Idaho, that we have an administrative agency that thinks that they don't have to follow what the state legislature tells them to do. This is how we get to a point where people lose trust in their government. If they realize that the agencies are just going to make their own rules and they're not going to follow the dictates of the people. Because remember, the legislature represents the people.
Health and Welfare did not have a comment for us beyond that original statement from Director Dave Jepson that was released earlier this week. They stand by what they did was not wrong. They are doubling down that they have a legal opinion to back up that stance as well. And of course, that's the crux here, Brian. That letter, is it a legal opinion or not? As the AG's office says, he's retracted it. Also, this has gone through court before, another context as well. Judges have already said they haven't done anything wrong. So what can you do exactly to recoup those funds? I'm not sure, but Labrador said civil and criminal, those are both on the table. He's pushing forward with it.
Okay, going back to that letter with the Raul Labrador's letterhead, the AG's Labrador's letterhead, how does that happen? I'm still confused how that happens.
So there's 120 attorneys that work for the AG's office. You are going to inherit a lot of attorneys from the people before you. And so I imagine this would have been somebody under Wasden's administration. Then when Labrador comes in, he just inherits that guy.
Right.
Well, that guy works closely with Health and Welfare, and his opinions probably didn't change. Well, his boss's opinions seem to have changed. So that was the confusion there.
Curious if that guy still works closely with Health and Welfare, an attorney. All right, thank you very much, Andrew.